Welcome back to another episode of Mooreology³, where three sisters discuss a topic with their unique, different backgrounds. Join us this week as we talk about AI.
All right. Welcome back to Mooreology³, where we come together, my sisters and myself, to just discuss various topics. Today, we're hoping that we will spur some conversation between you and your own family, make connections to new information, and just continue to learn about different things going on in our wonderful world. I hope that you'll like this video and subscribe. The last time we came together, we started talking about AI, data centers, kind of the two of those things. Jennifer led that discussion, and it was interesting, just kind of starting this conversation. So today, I was hoping to talk a little bit about some of the research that's being done on data centers. I'm going to pull this up really quick, my article. Pull it up so you can see it. Hold on, I got to click back in over here so I can pull it up. But this particular article is talking about analyzing air pollution from data centers specifically. And can you guys see it?
Nope.
Not
yet.
sharing yet.
Okay, hold on. Hopefully it'll come up here in just a second. Let me just double check. Maybe it didn't get the share. Hold on.
Oh,
it says
press
disabled.
the button.
And again.
Oh.
Stephanie.
And again.
Come on, Steph. Enable us.
Oh, there we go.
Enable us.
And I am enabling you.
Yeah.
All participants.
This is the right
I have done this
kind
every
of...
single time. Why will it not share it? All right, it says it's done now.
All right, let me try again.
Stephanie, you might try doing it like after we're out of the meeting, and maybe it'll propagate better.
Maybe it'll.
There we go.
It'll stay there.
Oh, look, we can see.
Oh, I can see all of
picture of us.
Yeah.
There we go. That's better.
Here we go.
That's better.
Oh. No.
What happened? You clicked on the wrong thing. There we go.
I was trying to put this out of the way. But I guess if I click X, it'll go away. There we go.
It'll go away, yeah.
All right.
There we go.
So, Jennifer also had her article was also from Harvard. So it's interesting, but I also found an article from Harvard. This particular article on analyzing air pollution and health. And I think something we all hear about is data centers, this whole AI data centers, and people are really not wanting these. I talked a little bit about this last time about in Indianapolis, a couple of areas that are not far from me, where people are fighting against these data centers that are being approved. And, obviously people are concerned about some of the risks to their health. So this air pollution is one of them. Some of it is concerns about different types of things like water, copper. I didn't realize, but they need a lot of copper for data centers as well. But all these different facets of things that they're concerned about, that, we're going to use up these resources. But this particular article here, which is by Karen Felcher, a person that actually writes for Harvard, she met with Michael Cork and was talking with him about his kind of analyzing for air pollution, particularly from data centers. And what I found really fascinating, and I'm going to go down to it really quick because this is the article, is just his sorry, I'm worse with this, is basically this understanding of how that they are like going to be able to research this, because especially with air pollution, and I would say even with something like water too, the usage of water, I mean, it's probably a little easier to track like the water usage, but with air pollution, it's a very difficult thing to be able to track. And he's working on ways to actually like get information, like set up actual research to be able to track air pollution. And there's, a lot of challenges to be able to like actually get data to do the research, to be able to really even give anybody information on how much air pollution there is related specifically to data centers. But not only that, but also how that's impacting health risks to people that are around them. And, especially some groups like children and the elderly, people that have certain illnesses, these high risk groups. And so I thought this was a really interesting article discussing, how is he going to set up this research? And I mean, I think all of us, we've all read many research papers that have been put out. Sometimes they're biased, or there can be lots of different things that go into an article, or the actual way that the research was set up, the parameters that they put in place that can kind of skew that information, the data they get from it. And, and there's all of this extreme negative, I think, propaganda right now about data centers. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not a pro data center person by any means, but I think that one of the issues right now is us figuring out even how to assess this. So I thought this was a really great article of him discussing, his research that he's doing, the challenges he's having to be able to even research air pollution from data centers. Data centers haven't been around that long, so it isn't like there's a ton of research at this point. But I mean, obviously there's a concern for these health risks.
Yeah, and Angie, I would say that Define hasn't been around a long time, because when I was doing my research on it, one of the things is I had read somewhere that, if we really wanted to stop pollution and reduce the environmental impact of data centers in general, we would need to stop streaming. We would need to stop, because
Right.
essentially data centers technically have been around since 1940, and they really became like started growing in the 1960s and 70s,
Right. I
and
don't think a lot
became
of people realize
prevalent.
that.
Yeah, and became prevalent and really have grown now, like in the 1990s and 2000s, right?
Right. And this is the map here of current data centers. It might have changed slightly, but that I brought up last time, just so you can see how many are around. And obviously, there's a ton more scheduled to be built, with a lot of backlash to build these, even though you're right, they're necessary in order to do all these processes that we are doing on our computers.
Right.
Yeah,
And
like,
it's interesting because let me share this graphic because it fits right in with what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing now.
Yeah. So I thought this was interesting. Can you see it? There you go.
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
This was put out, and I'll scroll back up so you can see. This is put out by Eastern Carolina University. And basically, they're talking about, just like what you were just saying, the whole idea of the CO2 emissions. And they're I mean, obviously they're averaging, but
Wow.
I found it super enlightening as to the amount that they are projecting. And that's what this is. It's kind of this is kind of what we're kind of thinking is the way it is. I mean, they know that like an airplane that goes from New York to San Francisco, one passenger airplane only, emits 2.0, what is it? Uh, emissions per pound type thing. And so, and then they talk about a human life, the average that we do per like in our in a year is only 11.0. And then American life, you know, for the American life, it's 36.2. And then you look at US cars manufactured and fuel consumption, one average one lifetime is 126. And then you look at the training of an AI model.
And
Right.
one AI model, right?
One
Yes,
AI
one.
model is 626.2 emissions. And
Right.
one of the articles I read was they were talking about these data centers are going to be putting out with CO2 as much as what New York City does in a year.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons that it's concerning about these data centers being built in like populated areas is that they're estimating that damages driven primarily by like estimated 3.4 to 6.5 additional premature deaths per year. And they're figuring that they estimate 53 million to 99 million in annual health damages associated specifically to air pollution. Just one single facility is
Well,
53 million to 99 million in annual health damages.
and the
Yeah.
other thing that you were talking about, Angie, is you were talking about other factors.
Right.
So I found this image very interesting as to who is, as of right now, basically with the AI stuff, who's pulling what. So Google is pulling 25, like what is it, gigawatts per hour,
No. Yeah, gigawatts, yes.
gigawatts per hour,
Per
to
hour.
basically do what it needs to, do for AI.
As much as 2.3 million households. I mean, it's insanity. And
Yeah.
I understand people's concerns, especially in small neighborhoods where you have little children walking to school. You have, people, that this is right next to, parks. And they want to build these in populated areas. And
Yep.
and it's just concerning, to a lot of people.
Well, I think that between the CO2 emissions, the amount of electricity, because they're talking about how we just do not have the infrastructure as of
No.
right now in order to handle that. Even in the United States, where we've got quite a bit of infrastructure when it comes to electricity, it puts a super strain on the amount that we already have. But then you add on to that, this is how much money they're making.
Yeah.
But then my other part was this one. This is the one that got me. The water
Yeah.
usage.
Yeah,
How
because you
much
can live
water?
without, I mean, we could technically live without electricity. We really
Water
could,
we can't.
but
But we
without water,
cannot live
we
without
can't.
water.
And
Right.
one of the
Look
articles
how
I
much
was
is it
looking at,
taking? I mean, Google alone is consuming 9,618 Olympic pools worth of water.
Yeah. Like, I
Uh,
mean, and
and
again,
that's
water
just
is easier
today,
to
right?
track than something
yeah.
like air pollution.
Um,
Water is much easier to track. And I'm sure this is, fairly accurate information because they can track how much water is going into them.
Well, can and do are two different things.
True. But
So
again,
Google and Microsoft, what I think is interesting is Google and Microsoft, I was reading, are they are two of the better like groups that track things like
mhm,
usage. And I mean, they're really good at it. And so it makes me question, because some of these, like Meta, I can't believe that it's that much less than Google. I mean,
yeah,
very interesting to me, but it makes me wonder how accurate is the information there? Because, let's be honest, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you guys as teachers understand this, right? You can have all the data in the world, but if the data is not collected correctly,
right,
it's junk. I mean, garbage in, garbage out, right?
right.
And so that's one of the things I found interesting about the article you were looking at, Angie, is it really talks about like quantifying, like how do you do that? How do you collect
Exactly.
enough information? And so one of the things I thought was really interesting was I was looking at a article that was put out by um, the GAO, right? Because I was curious, like, what does the government know, especially after the last time we
Right.
talked? And the majority, the group that has the most data centers, or the state that has the most data centers, was Virginia, right? And we talked about how that was probably related to the government, right? So I'm
Right. Because there's
curious.
so many military bases. Yeah.
And
Right.
here's the thing about our government that I think is really cool, but also like crazy,
Yeah.
is that, they do so many studies and have so much material that we don't even know about, right? Like as a general citizen, unless you're really looking at this, you're like, you have no clue that this exists, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so the GAO is a really good like group to like kind of look at. So like I said, I was curious what do they have? What does the government have as far as studies that they've done or paid for that talk about the impact of AI on like humans and the environment, right?
Right. Like the
And
resources. Right.
exactly. And so one of the things that it was talking about is what they don't know, because
Mm,
they don't know a
okay.
lot.
Mm,
Scary.
And this article, they put it out in 25. Okay. So it's about a year old. But I mean, basically, they're having trouble because the data is not complete. I
Which makes
mean,
you wonder, why is the data not complete? Is
yeah,
it that
well,
they're not
Angie, you've collected
retrieving it?
data. Have you collected data? I know you
I
have.
have collected data, but on a
How hard is
small
it to
scale.
get consistent? Like if I have you and Stephanie both collect data, and I tell you I want you to collect data on your students for reading, how you collect it might be very different than how Stephanie collects it.
Right.
And
Right.
now magnify that out like 10,000 times,
Mm.
maybe 100 million times.
Well, and it goes back to him talking in this, it is a challenging to basically set up the parameters for the research he needs with air pollution because there's other factors and it moves and you know
mm.
how do you set up the research to be able to decipher it's specifically this pollution is from a data center.
Well, that's the problem with some of that. If it's in a high populated area, what other industries are in that area that are obviously putting out pollution? But then on top of that, if you're in a big, large city with a lot of cars, you know, how much is it from the cars? How much is it from the other industries? How much is it from the data center? And I mean, you are almost doing apples to oranges because if you're doing New York City versus Los Angeles versus Detroit versus, you know what I mean? Now you're talking about
Right.
different populations, different industries that are in those areas,
Mm-hmm.
and you're talking about data centers on top of that. So how do you, I mean, even if you were to look at like information that was like, here's what the CO two emissions were in, let's say 2018. Let's just take a date, okay? 2018. And here's what it is in 2026. Well, how can you say that that's specifically to the data centers with the amount of increase? Could there have been other factors of new industries that have just moved into the area too? So you're
Right.
really talking about a very difficult research and setting up the parameters so that it's not biased based on the areas it's at or the industries that are there, the amount of people that are there, so I think that's really difficult to do. And I think that, you know, quantifying it is going to be super difficult to do that.
I think
Well,
something else too, real quick. The EPA has been dismantled quite a bit, and many things thrown out the door in the last several years. Every state has kind of their own rules, regulations for air pollution, and Indiana is quite lax compared to some other states. It's difficult too, because it might be in one state where there's stricter regulations than others to show even a pattern amongst data centers, because there could be more or less, there could be different regulations, the populations, where it's located, all these different factors that would go into doing this research.
well, and one of the things that I was looking at, again, because I like the technical side more, right,
Mm-hmm.
is, and you were talking about your article talks about how you quantify it, right?
Right.
So do here's a good example. Do you include, because a data center, basically, depending on the size and things like that, do you include the water and electricity that it took to produce the semiconductors that are needed, right, to power that? Do you include that, or do you not include that in the environmental footprint?
I think you
Yeah.
should. Um, and that's just
Because,
my personal opinion. I think you
yeah.
should, because here's the thing. If you think about this, when you're talking about environmental impacts, Um, every day that we have electricity, water usage, that is a resource that is needed for most people in this world. And so it's going to leave a footprint in the sense of that is a resource. So every time that something is taking up a resource, I feel like it should be included in whatever we're doing in the sense that it's a limited resource also. So it's not like you've got I've got amples amount of, unless you choose to do like some sort of like solar, in which case, obviously, you could collect a lot of solar energy. So, but I don't think the data centers are going to
Hmm.
be doing solar energy for these. That would be one way to do it if you were going to
Here,
collect energy.
some of them are. So really, okay, you got to think about it as two separate things, okay? So you got to think about it as you have a data center, right? And then that data center is getting energy and water. And that energy, that electricity is produced by what?
Whether
Okay?
that's water, wind, solar,
Yep.
coal, whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
natural gas, that's a
Mm-hmm.
big one. So one of the things I like noticed was that they are talking a lot about how the business impact, right? Um, we're in a race with China to
Right.
try to get um, to be on top of generative AI. Okay, so we need more energy and things like that to do that. That's natural. Well, the problem is a lot of the stuff that might be good for the environment, where you produce electricity um, better in a less environmentally impactful way, that is like 5 to 20 years out before it gets to a workable position. They need this stuff up and running in the next 5 years.
Yep.
And in order to do what our government believes is beating China in the AI race. And the only way to do that is, guess what? Coal, natural gas. And
Because
they're
it's already,
two
the infrastructure is
largest.
there. The infrastructure is
It
there.
is. The infrastructure's there. And, you know, again, they're the easiest things to do. So the other thing I thought was really interesting that I read was they were talking about how a lot of the new hyperscalers. Okay, so a hyperscaler is giant, right? A giant data center, because there are different kinds of data centers, right? So hyperscalers, they're locating in Texas a lot, even though that is there's a little less water there, right? But one of the reasons that they're doing that is because Texas electrical grid, right, is not associated with the overall United States electrical grid.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, it's independent. That's why they have all the problems where like everything goes down, like if they have snow and things like that, because they're all by themselves. They're not connected to anybody. Whereas everybody
Sounds
else
like
in
a
the
Texas
US,
thing.
yeah, everybody else in the US, like if Indiana, we don't just get our electricity from one place, right? We don't just get it from everything that's done in Indiana. We get it. If they have to, they can pull it from California or wherever, okay? Because it's all connected. The grid is
So it's a
connected.
closed system in Texas.
For the most part, yes. And so it's one of the reasons that they have problems that they have, with their electrical grid. But they're also do not have hardly any regulations in general. And so they're building out a lot of data centers there. But what they're doing and what the trend is right now with like Google and Microsoft, because they need these giant,
Right.
data centers, right?
Salt Lake is
Hyperscalers.
also another one that's got a huge one that they're getting ready
Utah,
to
all these
put
states,
in.
right? So what they're doing with those is they're actually building plants for natural gas and electrical production next to those sites.
Yeah, actually, I just saw a
So,
video about a girl who's losing her home because the company, I think the electric company, is taking her home, basically eminent domain, to put up new grids, new electrical grids, so that they can basically give electricity to a data center that's going to be in a different county, but they are taking her home in eminent domain. And obviously, concerning because this is their family home that they've had, and
For generations, probably.
and now it's being taken.
But like I said, what I find interesting is they are actually going outside of that. They're not even
building
going to
their own electricity.
They're building their own electrical grid
and
their own like ability to power everything. Because one of the things about these big hyperscale centers, right, is they need to run 24/7, and that's why they want to be, they want it a lot of times, like in the past, they've built into the regular electrical grid because they can guarantee that they're getting, power all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year long, right? And so now what they're, some of the companies are like trying is to produce the same thing, but in a closed network, right? So they would be doing this. But here's one of the things that is like problematic about that, right? Because we think we just see, oh, we plug something in and it works. It seems simple, right?
Right.
But that's not the way it really is, because they have to take electrical, like generators and things like that. They have to take those offline and do maintenance and things like that. And that's why there's that big network across the United States, because it seems like, well, you take it off for a few hours, but you can't go without electricity for a few hours, right? And on top of that, these are giant like facilities. So it's not like you can do maintenance in a few hours. The kind of maintenance they need to do takes like a year. So there are things going up and down in the background all the time. And we don't even see it because everything is connected on the grid.
Right.
And it's not
Well,
interrupting.
and this is what's been a big problem with electricity in general, with the some of that. They've talked about the whole idea that, and this has been a big concern, which is kind of an interesting thing. And I'm wondering when you're talking about all this AI generation and you're talking about the closed systems and stuff like that, my mind goes to, all the electricity type things and how they're talking about all the grids are basically connected. And if you had a cyber attack, it could potentially basically take out the whole grid. And so if you're pulling from all these different grids that are all connected, how much damage or how much can they interrupt it? So when you're talking about Texas having their own grid by itself outside the United States, I find that super fascinating in the sense of if they've got their own, why do they feel the need to have their own? Why not be on the grid with everybody else?
Well, because then I think they would have to follow the guidelines that this is my understanding. I haven't,
and the country. Yeah.
yes. So I haven't like researched it, but my understanding is it's because they don't want to follow the same guidelines.
Regulations, yeah.
Yep. So basically you think about it like this. When you join a group, you have to follow their rules, right? Now you can adjust them and change them and things like that over a period of time, but you got to follow their rules. And they don't want to follow the same rules that the organization that governs that network want them to follow.
Well, that might be something to kind of look at some point too, because that's a very interesting how different is their regulations versus everybody else's. Are they a lot more relaxed? Are they just a little bit more relaxed? Are they?
I think we can say it's Texas. They're probably a lot
They're
more
pretty relaxed.
Yeah.
I'll lay back for that. Yeah.
And it goes along with the whole idea that they've talked about like seceding from the United States. I mean,
several times.
That's always a
we
that's
love
always
you,
a
Texas.
topic.
We love
Yeah,
you.
we do.
I like that idea too, Texas. Succeed.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I mean, I think we could agree that there's obviously going to be some environmental impacts. The question is how much CO2 is going to be emitted, and if it's going to be substantial. We already have environmental issues with our atmosphere with the CO2 already. So how much more is our atmosphere going to be able to handle to be able to do that? And then obviously the water consumption for this and the energy consumption for this, all of them are super alarming in some ways, but at the same point, what are we getting? I mean, because I always feel like for me, it's all about economics in some ways. For whatever you put out, what are you getting back? And is it making society a better place? I mean, I feel like, you were talking about the whole thing of like being in a race with China. And I mean, did we not do this with the nuclear race at one point? And what did we get out of the nuclear race? Nuclear bombs? Okay, great, wonderful. What is a nuclear bomb really going to do in the long run for the common person in the long run?
Right.
And we put a lot of energy, money, time, resources into this. And what output did we get other than, obviously bombing a few people? Okay. So I think that's kind of a bigger question.
Yeah, and I think that goes to I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I believe this or not, but I would say that if I was arguing against what you're saying is I would say that the United States got dominancy.
Right.
Like economic dominancy over the world, right? From those decisions. And because they did, we live in one of the like most over-consuming populations in the world, you know?
Right.
And I have electricity all the time, and my toilet works, and you know, I can say whatever I want. I can get on and I can do
Well, mostly
dishes,
anyway.
things.
There's a
Yeah,
few parameters on that, but only a couple.
yeah, very limited compared to other
Exactly. Very
countries.
limited. Right.
So that's what I think if I was arguing it, I would say that's what we got. Now, is that like making society better overall? I don't know if I can say that.
It's debatable.
Yeah,
Debatable.
you know,
You know,
It's making our society.
I
We
don't even know if
are
it's our making our society better, truly. You know, we don't work as hard as we did, you know, we're not as happy as we were. We think everything sucks. I mean, look at consumer sentiment right now. It's terrible
right now it's
because
rough.
it is, but is it really that rough?
I
I
mean,
mean,
compared to
again,
places, no.
yeah, well,
No.
think about grandma and grandpa, all right? You know, I
Yeah.
mean, they lived through the Depression
Right.
and
We're
they had
not
to,
there.
yeah,
We're
I
not
know. And
there.
it's like, you know, we're bitching and whining about this stuff when in reality, we are so much better off, but we don't think that. You know, I was listening to something the other day, and they were talking about like how actually I think it was last night. This gal was talking about like economics, and they were trying to explain why consumer sentiment is so like low, right? And has been for a while. And you know, if you think about it, like in 2017 and 2018, things were kind of cruddy, you know, then, but people now like look back at it and think it was so much better. You know, some of that I think is
Right.
just being human. We do that. We idealize things sometimes, or we go the other way, right? We make
Right.
it
I
like the
see
worst
this.
time ever.
I see this often that people are like, this is the worst. And I'm like, wait a minute. Because, like, oh, it's, the worst inflation. Well, it's not really the worst inflation. They just think that's media in general, sensationalize because they want clicks or whatever. But,
Well,
but you
but
could go
not just
back.
the media, not just the
Yeah.
media. The media is giving us what we want. We tell it what we want. We watch
Exactly.
what we
I
want.
agree. I agree.
So
well, and
I think
you
be
know, I,
accountable.
I
Right.
think
I
well,
agree with you.
I think that I think Jennifer's definitely right about that. I think whenever you're doing, and I think it's this goes to research also, the idea of what are you comparing this to? What does this, when you're quantifying what you're saying, if you say that this is the worst economy ever, what are you basing that off of? If you say it's the best economy ever, what are you basing that off of?
Right.
And if consumerism is at a at a depressed place at this point, and people are unhappy with things, I think you really have to look at what are you comparing that to? And, I was just having a conversation with two friends of mine yesterday who her mother is 92 years old, okay?
So she's lived through some things.
She's lived through the Depression and she remembers the Depression. And I think that when we talk about things, um, we know that our grandparents, all of them, lived during the Depression. And so we're only two generations from that idea of that. But most people that are today, if you look at the people that are like teenagers, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, how far in many generations
Right.
are they
5
from
or 6
that Great Depression?
generations.
Right, exactly. And I think that makes a big difference because people say, oh, things really, it's awful, it sucks, and stuff like that. What are you quantifying that to? What are you comparing that to? You know, and I'd be really interested to know what our viewers compare that to. Because I mean, I know that we grew up in the 70s where interest rates were just awful. And
And
there was the
I know the
crisis
year
with
I was
gas, and
born,
there was,
yeah,
there
there
were
was
all these,
coal issues because we had a
right.
boiler in our house, and I
Yes.
was only like, 4 or 5 months old when there was basically no coal, and our parents put everybody in the front room because they
There's
had a
no
gas.
oil.
Yeah, that's true. But they had the gas logs up there. So they stayed up in that area because they couldn't afford it. And
Yeah.
I was a baby, so I was sent with family. I think they kept Jennifer and Stephanie, but at the
Mm-hmm.
house with them. But I
But
mean,
you were too little.
yeah,
They
since
were
I was
afraid
like,
you'd be too cold and it would
You'd
cause
be
you all
yeah,
kinds of
sick,
other
and
and
issues.
I
You'd be
they
was
sick.
not
already
afford to take
had
you
a
to the
lot of,
hospital.
yeah, they
They
didn't
couldn't
want,
afford it, you know?
yeah, so they sent me with family. But there are I guess we can recall things like this. And another thing I can really recall from my grandmother that I still to this day do not forget is that she was like, you can only have two pieces of uh of toilet paper for a number one and only four for a number two, period. Because she was
Yeah.
just like, you can't waste toilet paper.
It's
And
cost a lot of money back then.
or if there's like a little bit of soap left, they had like that
Oh,
the
yeah, that
little
was the best thing ever. It was
a little
liquid
cup with
soap.
just random pieces of little soap in it because they did not
Goopy.
waste.
The
When
They
you
didn't
goopy.
waste.
And
came, yeah, when you came over to stay with her,
Mhm,
it was like, I'm going to get this special thing out and let you
mhm.
use it. It was like the liquid soap, and they would take all those every little piece of bar and stick in the liquid soap.
tiny bit of soap that's left
It
at
was
the
the liquid soap before liquid soap was
yeah,
popular at this point.
exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, funny.
But I think that's one of those relative things. I think that it depends on what you're comparing things to. I mean, if you're only comparing it to your own life and all you've heard in in reiteration is how everything is horrible, then yes, you're going to think it's horrible. And the same thing, if you're researching and you're looking at this and you're looking at AI and you're like, okay, so what's this bringing to the table? What is it going to help us with? How can we envision in the future, is it really worth the energy, the resources, and the time that we're investing in this? Is it going to make human life better, or is it going to make human life worse? And I think that is a huge question we all have to ask ourselves. You know, when we have limited resources, what do you put your resources toward? And are those resources really going to be utilized to make life for just the general population better? And I'm not sure we could even answer that question because I'm not sure that the government has enough information. I don't think that Harvard has enough information. And I think this is going to be an ongoing thing that, and it'll be long after we're dead. I'm going to say that long after we're dead, that they'll look back like we always have and be able to go, okay, so this is what this has done. It's like studying the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
We have way better understanding of what that did to our societies.
Let's
And
think
for
of the
some
air
things,
pollution
it's
back
good.
then.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
You want to
the
talk
thing
about
is
some
think
air
about it.
pollution.
What did it do for us? And I'm going to
Right.
say, if you look at it on some aspects, it really did help our societies. And on many other aspects, it really hindered our societies. So, I mean, I don't think there's a one thing that you could say that is going to bring wonderful things or worse things. I think it's going to bring lots of change. And Jennifer, you and I've had this conversation multiple times. With change, with things that happen, there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers.
Yeah.
And that's
Always.
just there's always. And I mean the question is where are you going to be with this? Are you going to be the person who is losing your house and your land to
Yep.
this, or losing your job to this, having more CO emissions into the environment that causes you health issues? Or are you going to be on the other spectrum of it because it's going to make your job better and it's going to bring you all kinds of money and things like that? I think that it's really going to matter where you are and who you are to really decide, later on in 20, 30 years from now, we'll be able to analyze like trends and data, but
Right.
it doesn't sift down all the way to the minute person and the impact it has on that person. And those little stories are the ones that most people look at and they identify with. And I think
Okay.
that's going to make the difference.
Something
Yes.
I think about, just looking back at us growing up, we had what, 4 to 6 stations on TV. I never would have fathomed the amount of different channels, ability to watch things that we have today. Growing up, we had just regular, rabbit ear TV. In the 80s, cable started coming about, and it was, wow, you have all these channels. And then, internet comes about, it brings about that. And then all of the smartphone and all of the apps, and now streaming. Like, I would have never fathomed where our television would have went to. So, I mean, at this point, to really be even comprehend where AI is going to go is really difficult. If you think back, growing up
It's
as
a
a
guess.
child, watching our television, and wow, cable, wow, the ability to watch all these different channels. And it just,
MTV,
yeah,
woohoo!
MTV, which we didn't have cable growing up. Our parents were the ones that were like, no, we're not paying for that.
We had to
I
go to
went to
other
other
people's
people's
house and
house.
watch it.
Yeah, exactly. Jeez.
Well, you say that is
Um,
what's interesting about it is I remember having a conversation with mom about this, and she had mentioned that Grandpa Moore had said he knew that at some point we would be paying for television stations and stuff like that. He
huh.
predicted that. I mean, obviously he was very well read. I mean,
He
Right,
a
was.
super well-read man, super, super intelligent man. Even though he only got an eighth grade education, he read and he
right.
continuously read about things.
Yeah,
And
he built
he
his own
mentioned,
house. Yeah,
yep. And what he said was he predicted, he was like, oh yeah, at some point people are going to be paying for, television, like being able to watch the television stuff, which obviously that's when cable, I mean, he died in 82, 83.
yeah.
Something
So
like
pretty
that,
early on
yeah.
before really cable kind of started really coming out.
It was before I
Um,
went to college, so yeah.
yeah, I think I was like fourth grade when
Well,
Moore passed. And
yeah.
so it was interesting to hear that because then it was like, oh, you know. So I mean the thing is that I feel like the more read and then you look at some of the authors that wrote in the 50s and the 60s, and some of those books took things obviously to the extreme. But if you think about it, Fahrenheit 451, they were talking about having short clips of all kinds of stuff that you could see.
Right.
And now look, we got all these like, what are they? The little reels that they
YouTube
do,
shorts, reels.
shorts,
Yeah.
or the where the kids
TikTok.
TikTok
Yeah.
scrolling and scrolling
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
and they're just watching little tiny clippets and little tiny clippets and stuff like that. I was like, how accurate was that?
Right.
So
It is kind of crazy.
I had this like idea, like this thought, like not too long ago about TikTok and the reels and shorts, right? I think it's the new cigarette.
Yeah, it might be.
New addiction.
I was
It
going to tell you
is.
guys this too. I just watched a video, and they were talking about how these people in New York, they're changing out all of their locks for their apartments. The company is where they rent their homes. And basically, they have to pay $85 a month subscription for the app to be able to get in and out of their apartment complex and their doors. And it was just mind
I would
boggling.
never in a zillion years
Okay,
pay for that
I wouldn't
bullshit.
live in New York City, although I love New York City.
Yes, I
It's
do love
not
New
someplace
York.
I could live. And
Too many
I'm not
people.
an apartment person either. Although lots of people love apartments. It's just my
You
thing.
know,
But
as
I
you say
just
that,
can't
that sounds like
imagine.
extortion.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that sounds like legal extortion to me.
Yeah, it was
Man,
crazy.
that's
But you talk
frightening.
about these subscriptions, TV costing money. What else are they going to, they talk about every facet of our life we will pay for. What the kind of crap is that you got to pay to get in your own damn place
Well,
every
and
month?
here's the other thing. Yeah, that to me, what you're talking about with that is super frightening in the sense of, at this point, basically, if let's say you didn't pay your rent or whatever, they could just lock
Yep.
you out.
They
Like,
could just shut down
I get
your
out their
I'm
phone.
house.
Look,
sure.
I get out
And
my
you're
phone, and all of
paying
a sudden
them.
I'm like doing do 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 do.
Yeah. But if
You're
they
That's a
out.
lock
great
you
business. I mean,
out,
it's a great business idea, really. Think about
yeah.
it. Because
Yeah, you
you
have
can,
total control.
although I will tell you this, in New York, you probably have enough protections that the owner of the company would be in trouble if they locked you out. But I do think that it's kind of like what is it, the StarNet with the cars, right?
Yeah, where
So
they can
they
shut
made
your car down
repoing
now.
cars so much easier because basically they just shut the engine down. If you don't pay your bill, you're not getting the car.
Right.
Just turn it
Well,
Wow.
off, push a
they're
button.
also doing that. They're
That's
on
been going
all
on
new
for
vehicles.
years.
Yeah, but new vehicles are going to have a kill switch where they can shut your vehicle down for any reason they want.
Angie, that's been around for a long time. They
I
did
think
that
it
when
has
John
too.
worked at JD Byrider. They did that.
They
It
would
Well,
was a
shut the
buy here,
vehicles
pay
down.
here kind of place. And so they needed to repo a lot of cars.
well, here's the so when we were talking about AI and all that kind of stuff. At what point will they be putting AI more into the cars where you don't have to have a person that comes and repossesses your car? The car will just drive itself right back
No
to the
shit.
dealership.
Don't give them
I'm
Well,
ideas.
just
Stop.
can't.
Stop giving them ideas.
that's
I'm like,
already probably in the thought line
Yeah.
because they already have autonomous driving,
Right.
yes.
Well,
you
you
know?
know.
It
Yeah.
it,
And I
it
mean, I'm just
is.
saying it's just it's one of those things that you start thinking about this generative AI. I mean, I don't know. I guess if I was a writer and I was thinking of the horror stories that could happen with generative AI, man, there'd be some scary stories out there. Like
Yeah,
what
I
AI,
don't
generative
know.
Well,
AI could do for us. Or
you know,
they're just gonna take over like Skynet and we're gonna be done.
yeah.
Terminator, here it is, We're here.
Well, it's funny because you say that, like Matrix. Like when we've been talking about this, Matrix is in the back of my mind, like
Me too.
constantly. Like, where are they going to get the energy to do all this stuff? Right?
Eventually,
Great
is it
fun
going
the
to be
other day. I was like,
us?
oh my God, we're gonna become the energy. We're gonna be like Matrix up in our little poles like this. I sh They're gonna be
Yeah, in the
harvesting energy
gel,
from
in the
us.
gel.
If we're
Ooh.
not already that, because there's some people who believe we're already that.
Oh my
So
God, really seriously.
I mean,
that
it's
believe
possible.
this is a place that basically is just, you know, a fake place.
A
Well,
fake
I
place
mean,
and everybody's fake too.
I
Yeah.
always, whenever
That
I
we're
think,
just, dreaming along.
yeah, well, whenever I get like really stirred up about things, I think about Men in Black, right? So I don't know if you ever watch those
I've
movies.
watched it, but it's been a long time ago.
Yeah, where they're looking for I think it's the first one. They're looking for the orb of whatever, and they can't find it, and they can't find it, and they're kind of freaked out about it. And it turns out that it's this little tiny keychain, right?
Yep.
That that is a little orb that hangs off this cat, right? And that's a whole world.
Universe. It's a whole
Yeah, a
universe
whole universe, right?
in this little
Little
tiny spot.
tiny. And then the very end of the show, they show like where they go out and where the world, the earth, right, is a little tiny like piece, right? And
Yeah.
Right.
it's in its own little like ball.
This is why I
And
love Horton Ears or Who. I just think it's like the greatest because it's like, the elephants, like, can't you hear them? They're on here. Like, they're all like yelling to them, help. Yeah, that's the greatest story. I love it.
yeah. I
You
get
know,
that now. I was like, how did we get to Horton Hears a
I
Who?
don't, because it's the whole
Because it's
story
got the
is,
little tiny things.
No,
like
I got
because
it.
you
I
know,
got it now. But I was like, it took me a minute to get to
it's the
that. That's
same
crazy.
analogy. There's like all this whole world on this teeny tiny little whatever flower, if you want to call it, and everybody's trying to take it from him. And they're like, "There's nothing there," and he's like, "But can't you hear?" Oh, I love Horton Hears a Who. It's the best.
Yeah.
You
Anytime I
know
get
me, I love
stirred up,
my
I think
kids
about those
stuff.
things.
My kids stuff.
Well,
But it's
let's
teaching
be
you
honest.
to be respectful because you don't know, respectful. I think Dr. Seuss is awesome. Be respectful to all things around you because you don't know what it is. You don't know if
Mhm.
it's a living thing. There's living things all around us. I love it.
I'm just going to plug this, Angie, because I'm pretty
Okay.
sure Star Trek did that before.
Really?
Yeah.
Before, yeah, there's a whole.
I don't
there's
know
a-
that they did that before Dr. Seuss.
When
Dr.
was
Seuss has
Horton
been around
Hughes?
for a long time.
Yeah.
Like the
Like the
19
original book,
30s,
I'm looking it up. I'm looking
40s.
it up right now.
Yeah,
All
I
right, look it
thought
up.
Horton. Yeah,
But
I guess
I
I was
mean,
thinking that was one of his later ones, but maybe not, because that came
getting
out
back
like in the
to
70s.
Right.
getting back to the AI stuff, though. I mean, I feel like I know
It's
I'm
off.
reeling you people
Always off
back
on a
in.
tangent.
Yeah.
1953.
Yep,
Reel
so it
us
definitely
in,
came
reel us
before.
That's
in.
when he started working on it. Was published January 1st, 1954.
Yeah.
But
Just
Oh.
gotta say.
but I mean that's the thing. I mean, I think it, when it comes to what we're talking about with the AI generative type stuff, and we're talking about the way that the resources are and what needs to be done. Again, we're really, going to have to really kind of look at those things, and the research that needs to go into it needs to be quantified in a way that is not biased, which I don't know if there's any research that's not biased in my
In
mind.
some way, right.
In some way, I mean, you know, who's doing it and what data are they using and how are they quantifying it? And there's so
What
many,
assumptions are they making?
right?
Right. Based
Um,
on the data they get.
right. So, I mean, I feel like, um, again, like last week, we got to that final kind of thoughts about this, and it was, I feel like AI can be good, but the same point, is it really going to be good for everybody?
And at what cost?
At what
Yeah,
cost?
Jen, you got
definitely.
any other things you want to put out there?
I'll just say that so in the things that I have been looking at, I question, like I know this is like an important topic and I know we need to be talking about it, but as far as like, is it going to make us that much worse off? Right? Like if we said right now today, we are not going to do any more AI. We're going to not build another AI center. Okay? Let's just say we did that right now, right? What would that do for us as far as health impacts and environmental impacts? I think it definitely helps with water and things like that. But what I don't think it really changes is how much CO2 is already in the environment. And the fact is that we're not doing enough to change our trajectory. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like I like to bottom line things. And to me, with or without AI, we're not going to do enough that climate change isn't going to seriously impact us, even without AI.
I don't know why they haven't created some kind of machine that can basically get rid of the CO2, the excess CO2. If we can make all of these wonderful things, maybe that's a question to ask AI. Why is there not some type of machine that can basically decimate, change, whatever, the CO2?
Transform.
Transform it to
Uh,
oxygen or
Called a
whatever we
tree.
need. Why
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. I was like, we have awesome things that do that. It's
Trees.
called plants and
Yes, they do it all the
organic things
time.
that take it in. That's what does it. I mean, if
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I'm still saying there could be, instead of complaining about all the CO2, why aren't we, and I do this all the time with my kids. Like, I don't hear complaining. What can we do? What can we do?
well,
I
that's
want you to
another
think about
question.
those things, you
If
know?
plants can do it and trees could do it, why can't we mimic that?
Exactly.
I don't, I
Or
It
mean,
makes
maybe we are doing it, but
maybe
it's
we
not
are.
being funded. I don't know. I don't know. I
Yeah.
I'm
don't
just asking. I
understand
Instead
mean,
of
enough.
I didn't think
complaining.
it's interesting. I mean, we have so many, but I will say this. I mean, because, we were talking about what does AI give us? And I do know that AI has been doing a lot in medical stuff. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
will we? I can't remember. Oh, I know. It's that video that you sent me, Jen, the one that
Mm-hmm.
you thought was interesting. And one of the things I think the guy was talking about was the whole idea of um, how there's um, different types of technologies that they feel like is going to help us live even longer. It's
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah. I'm not surprised at all.
are we
I
going to
mean,
live to 150,
it's
200? Can we generate our
unimaginable.
bodies?
Yeah. I mean, I think eventually it will be a fusing of mind and and an everlasting or type of body. And those that choose not to and stay what I guess you could say human, you know, eventually will that die out?
Hmm.
Will
I'm trying
regular
to think.
biological
There's
humans
actually a
at
movie
some
about
point,
this.
you know?
There's a movie where you basically transfer your consciousness into a new body.
Yeah.
To a new body or and I
Body.
mean and here's the thing with the
Yeah.
AI stuff it'd be interesting. I mean, I don't know. And this is very sci-fi-ish in my head, okay? Just to say this. But would there be a time where basically you could take your consciousness and be like transcended, I guess, is the word I'm going to use, into an AI that is living, quote unquote living. That's a general term I'm going to use. Um, and then basically you could just be transplanted from AI to AI, or you could just stay in that AI forever because I don't know, it doesn't die. That seems, I don't know, my head hurts with that. I'm just gonna tell you that
That
my
that
head
gets
hurts
us
just to
that
think
gets us
about
to
that.
robotics. Like I said,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the movie I watched was like more
Hmm.
dystopian about it. And I'm
Mhm.
trying to remember what the name of that was. It was interesting because basically if you could afford to buy a body, like
Yeah.
you rented it, basically. You rented the body. And you talk about subscriptions, right? You rented
Yeah.
the body. So basically
Oh,
they would
Jesus
save
Christ.
your memory on a disk, right? And if you could afford it, you could get a really good body. And if you couldn't afford it, then you couldn't bring your people back,
Oh,
you
jeez
know?
Louise.
And so it's sometimes you would bring, like they had this one, it was really crazy, the little kid that was brought back in a human body, in an adult older person's body.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's
Because
all
he
they
couldn't
could afford.
afford
That's all they
yeah,
could
oh,
afford.
jeez.
Couldn't
Yeah.
afford a baby
Very
body, I guess.
But
no.
where do you make money if there's no jobs and I mean, I guess that's something too that's on my mind is I mean, where will money come from? And I'm not talking like digital currency
Mhm.
versus, I mean,
You're not
like,
talking about physically. You're talking about how
yeah,
will people earn money.
exactly. I just am in this dystopian world that you're talking about, where were they getting money? Was it
Yeah.
just, and why
Selling
did some
bodies.
people have more than others?
Selling
It's like
bodies.
selling bodies. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, there's a whole thing. But
Grave diggers there. That's what that
yeah,
sounds like to me.
exactly.
Grave diggers.
Yeah.
Making
I
money
know.
on the people
It
that are
was
dying. Oh my God.
it's definitely an interesting concept, right?
Yeah.
Like I love how sci-fi like projects potential futures,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
Well, and they just take usually, I mean, and this is that whole thing. You take one special effect, like one special thing, and you know, hyperbolize it to such a degree, and then make up a world from there. And some of these worlds, and this is what a lot of these dystopian books do, they're like they take something and totally blow it out of proportion, and then like, what does that look like for everybody? And then
Yeah.
try to cover what the society would look like if that happened, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Like I said,
Very
interesting
interesting.
concepts. I love how literature
Yeah.
does that.
I know. All
That's
right,
why
we need
people
to
should read
start
more. That's why people
wrapping
should
up
read
here,
more.
ladies. We got to
Yep.
wrap
Yeah.
up. But
Wrap
All
it
Nina,
right.
up.
I know we could talk forever. I know we could.
Well,
We
and
But
definitely could.
let's
I
just say
think
this. I mean, subscribers and people listening to this and commenters, comment. What are your thoughts? What do you think? I mean, when it comes to the amount of resources we have to put into AI generative, is it worth what we're going to get out of it? What do you think we're going to get out of it? Who's going to benefit? Who's not going to benefit from it? Um, are you, where do you sit with it? What questions do you still have about it? I mean, obviously, I have a bunch of questions
I
still
have a,
left.
yeah,
I
buttload.
mean, the more I ask, the more I learn, the more I have more questions. But drop us a line. Let us know what's on your mind. Let us know what you're thinking. You know, for those people who are obviously enjoying the AI experience or it's helped them, tell us how it's helped you. If you're on the other spectrum of it and it's, obviously impacting your life in a way that's not as wonderful, drop us a line. I mean, I don't think we can, necessarily help with that, but we'd like to raise some awareness to it so that people can really see what's AI really doing for our common people and how is it impacting you in your life. So subscribe, thumbs up, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Absolutely.
All
I'll
right, well,
add just one more thing
okay,
to
go ahead,
that.
Jim.
If you would have, if there's like a good movie or a book that you think represents AI and what it might lead to in the future, let us know because we love that kind of stuff. I'm a big movie person, and Stephanie and Angie are much more book people. So whatever it is, let us know because I'd like to, I love to see the lines between reality and literature and creativeness, like how they like kind of flow.
Hmm. All right, well, two things before we go. Number one, I just want to point out that less than 1% of the water on our world is water, fresh water that we can use. I think that needs to really settle with people. And the usage of water for these centers is a great, and just kind of keeping that in mind, how are we going to handle that? I think something else, that we didn't touch on that I just want to make sure everybody understands. Some of the different like emissions that are going to go out in the air from data centers include nitrogen oxides, diesel particulate matter. Those are exhausts that'll be coming out, but also for regional grid emissions, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and fine particulate matters like PM 2.5. So all of these are harmful to us. And again, I'm not against it. AI centers or data centers. I just want to make sure that there's a lot of discussion and thought and research done so we can try and figure out how to navigate being able to have water, which we've discussed is so important, and have better breathing. Indiana's not great for breathing because we have a lot of pollution. And obviously, I want everybody to feel good and be safe and healthy. So I'd like to end there. And thank you so much for coming and visiting with us. Again, please subscribe. Please like, leave us comments because we'd love to hear from you. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.